So please join me in welcoming Mike Covarrubias and Kara Swisher.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. So doing an interview with Kara Swisher in a half an hour, I just felt was like going to FAO Schwartz with your kid. Good luck getting through all the aisles, right?
Indeed.
There's so many topics, so many issues. I did want to give you one perspective. That
Sure.
Two years ago, I had the chance to interview James Carville and Laura Ingraham
Oh, wow. Oof.
together at the same time.
That's a pair.
And it was a pair. And two things popped up when we were interviewing James. One was he was sitting in his Barca lounger somewhere, wherever he was, drinking a full glass of red wine that he went through at least once or
At
twice.
least, yeah.
So my first question is, would you like some red wine?
No, thank you. I don't
Okay.
drink, actually.
All right.
I have other people drink, and then I talk to them. That's
Oh,
my
good.
hobby.
That's brilliant. The second was he didn't know the subjects, and we finally got around to the gun control subject. And he said, I love guns. He reached under his chair, unprompted and unscripted and not knowing that was the subject, and pulled out this gigantic hand revolver
Oh.
and said, I love guns.
Yeah.
So you're not packing, right?
No.
That's my other thing. All right. I just want to make sure those two things.
I don't hate guns. I don't have any
Okay,
kids.
so I thought that it might be easiest to start off, since there are so many subjects and so many things that Kara is an expert in and opinioned on, that we do a lightning round.
Sure.
So I'm going to say some things, and she's going to pop. And
Yeah.
then if we get some that seem like they're worthy, we'll come back and try to dive into them.
Sounds good.
So let's start off with crypto and Buffett's opinion.
Oh, well, you know, he looks smart now, I guess. He's always smart. I had dinner with him not too long ago, and he can eat. He ate a potato as big as my head, which was fascinating, and then proceeded to eat my food, Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
all this grease, and I was literally like, why aren't you dead right now? But he, you know, he's a very prescient guy. He sort of missed the internet, though. He did, because I called him right at the beginning there, and I said, I'd like to talk to you about this. And he actually answers the phone, which is amazing. Like, you call up Berkshire Hathaway, and you get a secretary, and like, I'd like to talk to Mr. Buffett. I'd like to ask him some questions. And you think you're going to get a PR person, and immediately it's click, click, hi. And you're like, whoa, it's Warren Buffett. Okay.
This is the lightning round?
Yeah, no, but let me just very quickly. He was right. He missed the internet, but he was correct about what he was talking about, which he didn't understand it yet. That said, there's some really fascinating things to come. It's just full of grifters and scammers right now, just like the early internet.
So 10 years from now, crypto is...
Something else. I think Bitcoin certainly
I'm okay
will be
with
around.
something else. All right. Silicon Valley,
Yeah. What about it?
lightning round. What do you think?
Lightning round. What is that? It's like saying God. What do you think?
Well, we'll get to God.
I think it's
like China.
It's in the middle of a reckoning that's still happening. I think a lot of people have gotten impossibly wealthy and incredibly careless, and they've taken what should be a much more productive. It's productive in terms of stock and things like that, and now they're getting a real slap in the face, regulatory, stocks, everything else, and it's all deserved.
Okay. Quantum computing.
Well, critically important. It's like saying AI. I mean, I think the
AI's above
issues around it are who controls it. And I think right now Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple really are going to dominate this area. So it's something our government really needs to be paying
So
attention to.
it is as big a thing
deal.
as they say.
Big deal.
Okay. The next president.
Oh.
Oh.
I don't know. Not Trump. I think he's going to jail. Or maybe he'll die before that. It's one of those two things. That's what all the Republicans hope in Washington. I live there. Off the record, the people who are most vehement for him are all like, I wish he'd die. That's what they say. And you're like, what? Like, I don't even want him to die, necessarily. But I think we should be looking for probably Biden.
Okay. Without getting into some company specifics, the Twitter Elon trial
Yeah.
direction and result prediction.
Well, we've been right about everything. Elon's going to lose a lot of money. He's really screwed himself rather handily. And also a lot of other people, apparently, with all his children. So he's going to pay a lot of money, big fine.
You think that's how it ends?
Delaware court does not come to play with this bullshit
They
tweet
won't do
crap.
specific
They
performance?
don't care. She doesn't even look at Twitter. They don't care. They're going to take him down.
No specific performance.
No,
Just
it's
money.
ridiculous, the bot
Just
thing.
money.
No, he's going to pay $15 billion and get to walk away. And that it's a bargain for him at this point.
Yeah, probably. Return to work.
I think a lot, I think it's a really big, I don't know yet, because I had thought hybrid would work, but it doesn't the way it's been done. But obviously, hybrid's going to be part of it. Certain industries, obviously, like hospitals, they have to go into work and stuff. But it's really still evolving. But I don't know what you're going to do with all this downtown office space. It's going to have to be something else.
You can come back for another panel
Yeah,
on that
something
one.
else.
China.
What about
China.
China, China. Our biggest rival in all kinds of ways. It's critical that it's one of the few things I agree with Donald Trump on. Not anything he says, because it's all racist and awful, but directionally, it's our biggest challenge across the world in a myriad of issues. I write a lot about it, and for many years, and people are starting to realize the threat it poses.
So taking a couple of those and merging them, the technology world and the Washington world, give your thoughts on where we're headed with the FTC and all those folks trying to regulate things. And,
Yeah.
and the trade-off, we in the Bay Area Council obviously are
Business.
growth towards business, lots of technology companies here, lots of benefits have come from all those companies, and then we have issues. Is the government going to figure this out? Are they going
Well,
to?
let me say, you may not be for regulation, but you know how much regulation there is in the technology industry? Zero. So I don't know why you wouldn't be happy with zero at this point. And
I didn't say I wasn't
I'm
for
just saying,
regulation.
business people have got to stop it. 'cause
Right. No,
there's
you're right. You're right. I
You know,
hear you.
Wall Street is regulated, cars are regulated, pharmaceuticals are regulated, tech is not regulated. And so it's slowly moving through, like senators like Senator Klobuchar and others, Senator Warner, are slowly moving through an antitrust bill that is going nowhere. It seems like a privacy bill is going nowhere. So the government has basically abrogated its responsibility on some key issues around tech, especially around consolidation. And I think it's the benefit of smaller companies for there not to be 3 or 4 companies dominating everything.
So we're going to come back to this, but let me just lay it out there. San Francisco.
I love San Francisco. I think a lot of these stories are overblown, although it faces enormous problems, just like every other city in America. I live in Washington most of the time now, but I have a house here. I would love to move back. I think there's challenges around crime and everything else, but of all the cities in the world, this is the one I would want to live in. I think a lot of it's overblown. There's just some visible stuff that's going on that I think is we should be able to fix.
Do you want to jump to that subject?
Yeah, I think I think it's a very sexy headline to go down to the Tenderloin, which is when I moved here in 1996 was a disaster, like it looks like it did then, and to point to it and say all the failures of this and that and of the government, stuff like that. Some of these problems, I've done some really interesting interviews with. Like Patrick Radden Keefe, I recommend his book Empire of Pain about the Sacklers, the over prescription of opioids, which then led to fentanyl. These are stuff that they should have paid for. The Sacklers should be in prison, actually, for all the things they do. You read this book and you're so angry you want to go find a Sackler and hit them. But they, a lot of these problems are almost insurmountable for a municipality to deal with, which is mental health issues, fentanyl issues. San Francisco happens to be a kinder city than others. Other cities just ship them off, and that's how they solve a problem. That's not a solving problem. And I think there's no way we can have we can't hide the dirt and degradation of certain people. We have to figure out a way to lift them up. There just isn't. And I'm not particularly liberal or particularly conservative, but it seems like it hurts everybody along the spectrum, the people who live here, the people who are on the streets, the government officials who are trying to deal with it, and I'm not going to both sides it, but you can't say oh, you can't touch this problem, and at the same time you can't say just jail them. It doesn't work. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It really doesn't, and it just kicks it down the road. So I think San Francisco still, it's a real opportunity right now for San Francisco. I think tech overwhelmed it and queered things, so to speak, and I'm saying that about San Francisco, but it changed the fabric and complexion of the city, and in a not a good way, and now there's an opportunity to really figure out what San Francisco is about, which is innovation, tolerance, diversity, smarts, doing things new and fresh ways. And it's looking a lot better. I've come back at various points during the pandemic, and I have to say, this visit, I always take beautiful pictures of kids playing out here, and I go, the hellscape that is San Francisco. Like, give me most of the city is looking okay, right? And there's just certain parts, and they're intractable problems.
So if elected, will you run?
If elected, will I run?
The seriousness of that question is a few
I
years
think
ago.
about it. Well, you see, what did I do? I was going to run for
You
mayor.
said.
I was going to run for mayor. I think I would have been very funny and made all kinds of errors and not cared, which I thought would be a good thing. I was sort of the liberal version of Trump, essentially, but not with 100% less racism, sexism, and general criminality. But I would, but then I had 2 children during the pandemic, more. I have 4 kids now. I'm like trying to keep up with Elon, but he's got an advantage on me.
Long challenge.
And I'd have to find yet another wife. But I have 4 kids, and so I had kids instead of running. So we'll see, because they're small and they need attention. So
you want us to put a placeholder there?
I'm going to bring them back here, though.
I meant for the
raised 2
mayor race.
wonderful sons here, and I'm going to raise 2 more wonderful children here. Son and a daughter.
I meant the mayor's race.
Yeah, the mayor's. If maybe.
Put a placeholder?
So maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Might have heard it here, 23rd. So let's talk about some of the aspects of if you ran for mayor, because I want to stay on that for a minute.
Sure.
And you mentioned some of them. The trick with San Francisco is its politics.
Yes.
As you alluded to. And the conflict between what's the best thing to do for someone. Now, DiRamondo, I forgot her first name.
Gina.
Gina's, thank you. The Secretary of Commerce was the governor of Rhode Island.
She was.
And for those who don't know, they did an amazing job of dealing with their homeless. And it sounds like something we would, revile against. They had a leftover prison. They passed a law that said if you are sleeping on the street and homeless, we will give you 2 choices. We'll either arrest you and put you in jail for a few days, and there's a good chance you might not feel good at the end of those 3 days, or you can opt to go to this place. It's got drug rehab, mental processing, for treatment. They had job training, and it was a place to sleep. What do you know? Their population started going that way. And it seems like a solution that doesn't take rocket science.
Sure.
But we can't seem to do it.
Well,
so if you're mayor.
Well, it is because people are people and they shouldn't be forced to do things. I think that's what the United States is about. I think one of the issues is I probably would have no tolerance for people sleeping on the streets. So how do you figure that out? And I think the issue is that has to be sort of the nobody can sleep on the streets, no tents on the streets, no this on the streets. Just making that, and then but then working backwards from that. That's your beginning point. Or have designated areas where people, if they want to do tents and stuff like that, which are safety and people have to keep it to it. I think prison is not the greatest place to put people, but
prison,
nonetheless, they had a former.
Yeah.
It's still a prison, and it has those repercussions and the visuals of it. But the idea of housing, I was talking to someone from Governor Newsom's office, and I think housing is really the issue. Is how do you figure out housing properly? How this has been such a the city has always operated in neighborhoods versus as a city as a whole, and so I think it's it's not even NIMBYism. It's something else. It's another thing where you just don't. That it doesn't understand its responsibility to those less fortunate. And obviously, institutions like churches and other things have fallen away, community centers, all that stuff has fallen away. And I think one of the things you have to do is start with housing. Start with how do you get people in places, find places, house them, and then move them through the cycle. I think you don't solve anything until you solve the housing issue.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah. We just have a few issues on how to get housing approved.
Right,
built
exactly.
and
That's
those
right.
things.
That's right. Which is kind of ridiculous on some level, and it's there's a lot of screaming on the both sides, and I think there's a quiet group of people in the center who all have sympathy and do not want people to be living on the streets, and at the same time don't want to not do anything, right? But there is some level of people have to, you cannot, hiding people is what I mean. That's what they do. You clean up and hide them. And so, and the in plain sight people makes people uncomfortable.
Doesn't
Well,
work.
maybe you should be uncomfortable to figure out a good solution. There's so much money here, it's crazy. And so what's the bet? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of money put toward homelessness. It was like $44 million. It's something incredible a number.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. So, okay, back to your daily tasks. You are, as everybody heard, active on podcasts. You've been writer for newspapers of High Report. What do you like to do? What's your fun job?
To do. I have 6 jobs.
Okay,
and 4
what do you like?
children.
What do you like?
I like to.
And which jobs do you like the best? You don't like this. You like being the
No, I
interviewer.
do like this. It's
no, you
fine.
like
I
being
don't
the
mind.
interviewer.
I don't mind. I don't care. What do I do? I work a lot. I have a lot of jobs. I love my podcasts. I think they're great. I do Pivot, and I just left the New York Times. I'm a leaver of places because I like to.
I was going to say you can't hold
I
a
know.
job.
No, I can't hold a job. They did not want me to leave. But it was funny because we were. They're like, "Wait, you're leaving?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's time to go. Like, I gotta go." And yeah, there it is. I knew I was going to surpass because I was waiting for. Yes, that's what I said. I just get bored. I'm an entrepreneur, and I want to try something different. And when I feel like I'm at a place that I can't do those things, I go to the next place where I can do them. And at this point, one of the things I realized at this advanced stage of my life was I have done thousands of interviews and I own none of them. And so I'm going to own all my IP from now on in this new deal. And I'm going to own half the revenue. So I felt like that was a better deal. I don't know. It doesn't take that much to figure that one out. And then at the same time, I love the podcasts are amazing. The interview, I love the format. I love my live events. I'm just about to have a code conference. We have everybody coming. Andy Jassy, all the big tech people are coming to it, and they did last year too. It's going to be my last year of doing it because I'm doing another event series that I'm more interested in around Pivot. So I like to change it up. I just shift things, and when I don't like something, I stop doing it and leave.
So those are methods for your madness. What's your madness? Is it you are known as the first real presence of the internet?
Yes, yeah.
Is that still your guiding light, your star? Is it, I want to make the internet something, or is it what is the guiding star? Is it technology in general? You've got a little bit of politics going on.
Yeah, I have it a lot more now. A lot of Hollywood stuff like that. One thing I want to do is sort of, like, one of the reasons I went to the New York Times is I really needed people to focus attention, especially the powers who read the New York Times, on tech's problems, what Facebook was doing around misinformation. And from the Recode purge, a lot of people heard me, but boy, did a lot, when I wrote that first article for the New York Times talking about amplification in 2016, where I said information is being amplified and weaponized, and we are in big trouble, and it's at the expense of education. Mark Zuckerberg, everybody picked their ears up. And so that was one of the reasons I wanted people to start to pay attention to the threats. And then again in 2019, I wrote a column about Trump and Twitter, and I said, here's my scenario. He loses the election. He tweets that it was a lie. He uses social media to do so, and then he asks his followers to attack the process physically. When I wrote that, I got all these calls from heads of internet companies. That's very irresponsible to suggest. And I said, why? It's going to happen. It doesn't make any sense. And so I like to call people's attention to threats. Right now, I'm very interested in climate change tech. So I'm spending a lot of time talking to people who are funding it, like John Doerr and Bill Gates, and looking at sort of innovative solutions to what is really the existential threat of our lifetime.
You should have been in here earlier. We had a really good panel on that.
It's
we'll have to get
quite
you,
true.
Get you a copy
Everything
of that.
else, it doesn't really matter, anything we do.
It's a little warm in London.
Yeah, it is. My sons are there. 2 of my older sons are there right now. They're very hot.
Yep, I can imagine. So we have 2 choices. I can give her another 3 or 4 questions, or if anybody, I've been told about 7 times today of the girl admirers in the room. You know, what's the
Girl?
term? What do you call that?
Is there any
thing?
girls here? I don't see anyone under.
That's what you call it. Girl crush.
12.
All the girl
Girl crush.
crushes
Ah, I see.
that are in the room. They're women, but they call it girl crushes.
All right,
and so
okay.
I'm sure 1 or 2 of them might have a question for you.
Sure.
So why don't we throw it out to a couple of questions if you have them. Sorry I didn't prep you. So Carol, you must have something you want to ask. Where are you? Oh, there you go.
Hi, Carol.
Carol worked for the Obama administration
cool.
in D.C. and now is running a think tank
Oh, neat.
and other things.
I just had
Ran
lunch with
Bridge
him, and
Housing.
his staff tried to give me COVID, but it didn't work. But go ahead.
Well, you were talking about tech companies.
Yeah.
So you were talking about tech companies and the city of San Francisco and how they've changed it. Do you have views on what the tech companies should be doing around the housing and homelessness issues?
Well, I think, they try to they put themselves in their little castles and close off everything with their beautiful food and everything else. And I don't think they ever became part of a fabric of the city. I don't know how you can force that. I think back in the old days, the banks did, or whatever the industry was, whether it was Gap or Wells Fargo, et cetera. And tech never really involved itself. They bussed people in and out. They used it as a place to go partying and stuff like that. So I'm not sure there's anything you can do except for a couple people like Mark Benioff and others, and even he's facing the challenges of that idiotic tower he built, and now he can't fill it.
He didn't build it, but
Whatever. In any case,
I want to,
the eyesore.
I
I tell him that myself.
I knew
Really
we'd get
is.
there. So I do want to have
Look,
you
I'm
think.
looking at it right now. What's it doing there? Get away. Go away.
You like the pyramid?
I used to shoot pictures and text them to him and saying, "Still ugly, still ugly."
So on the tech cooperation and involvement, I do want you to think about, we've been working on housing with Carol and lots of people you're going to see if you stick around, Linda Mandolini and other folks. And tech has tried a lot to step up. They have helped fund
Yes.
non-affordable housing things. They've worked with us on trying to get legislation solved. It's just a big ass problem.
It is indeed, and somehow apparently they're the smartest
it
people on
takes-
earth. So.
Yeah.
Which they tell you when they have an easy problem. When there's hard problems, they tend to be like, it's really hard. I do think if I would go to the richest people, which are the tech people, and that's who, in any city, for centuries, that's how things are lifted up from the top down. And I think they need to be, they have to be part of the solution if they want to be part of the community.
Okay, I have one last question, but I'll give anybody a shot. Anybody want a shot? This is the one time, no fee. You got them scared. Magic wand.
Yeah?
What do you do with it? You got one giant wish. Your magic wand. What would you change if you could change one thing on this planet?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Let me just stick to this country because it's a big world. There is a someone asked us this the other day, and I said I would shut down the internet for a couple of days, like for everybody. I think people are not seeing the community and commonality that we all have wherever we go. And I think it's being taken advantage of by a bunch of malevolent players to part people when they agree on a lot. And it's cynical, it's angry, I call it the
You just described the cable network system and
yes,
a lot
no,
of
but it's more than
newspapers.
that. It's
And a lot of newspapers.
it's an outrage industrial complex where everybody is a victim, that they're aggrieved and this happened and you can't say this and that and that. And believe me, the cancel culture people exhaust, not the people who do the cancel culture, but the people who've made a grift out of it is also, everything isn't a cancel culture. Everything is so I think I'd shut those people up, the noisy fucks who will not shut up from those sides, and start to have a real conversation among people who agree. I think there's a lot of people in the center who are quiet. Like, you remember the quiet, Nixon had that, the silent majority? There's a silent majority of people in the middle who are like, we're tired of these people screaming, and we're tired of these people. Now, look, the left screams enough. The right's is doing actual damage with Roe versus Wade, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't compare them, but there's a group of people in the middle who are exhausted by COVID, who are trying to do the right thing, who do not get enough voice in our society, and I think that it's because they're exhausted.
Good thought. I think that as is our general theme for today, we're trying to provide solutions to all the problems that we have in the Bay Area and the state and the country, and God help us, the world.
How do you feel about the Bay Area?
I've been born and raised, so I've not sojourned very far. The real estate, I'm in the real estate business, so we go through cycles. It's just what we do. And we've seen all these things before. We've seen people leave and come back and leave and come back and leave and come back. The work from home thing, I believe, as opposed to the last panel, isn't the new thing in mass. I think there will be people working from home because there's always been people working from home. 3 days a week, 4 days a week in the office, whatever that turns out to be on average, and some 5 days. I don't think it's going to undo the fabric of urban environments.
Yeah, I
don't
agree.
think it's going to undo San Francisco, New York, Washington. even Seattle and Los Angeles, because what brings people there is that energy,
Right.
that creativity, that camaraderie, that all that stuff that makes a city an urban mecca. I always say 2.5 years ago, San Francisco was the center of the universe. It was the center of a diamond. Everybody wanted to be here. Every company was here. We had Chase Center, we had ballparks, we had the arts. And then a bug comes through and it's like, oh, you poor people, you live in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And so we reputations are hard to build and easy to lose. So we're in the middle of rebuilding it.
I don't know. I think what you have is a lot of there's a lot of people who've left San Francisco that won't stop shutting up about how awful it is. And one of them in particular I interviewed, and, it kept going on about San Francisco. And I finally said, you know what? Your girlfriend broke up with you. Stop talking about her. You're getting creepy now. Like, what? Like, move along. And you don't have to tell me how good your new girlfriend is, because maybe she's not so good, because you're talking about the old girlfriend an awful lot and how much you hate her.
That's awesome.
And he was like, he's gay too. And he was like, I don't have a girlfriend. I'm like, but you do. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, nobody cares. Just leave. Go. See you later. Bye. Good luck. We have much better food here, but okay, whatever. Like.
Well, I don't know how to end on a better note than
No.
that. So we could do this for another hour, maybe next year.
It's not me, it's you. That's what I said.
Carol will come back. But please join me in thanking
Thank
her
you.
for doing this.
Thank you.
It was very excellent.